This, my fellow gamers, is the DeathAdder V4 Pro, and it's Razer's all-new flagship super light gaming mouse made for esports pros and enthusiasts. And you are probably asking yourself, why am I talking about this one, since I'm about as casual as they come regarding video games. And this one right here is really made for gamers that can click on heads faster than I find myself back in the lobbies of the battle royales I'm playing. That said, I enjoy premium peripherals, and make no mistake, the DeathAdder is very far from being a budget option. But the amount of technology Razer put into this thing is simply amazing, so let's see what you get for your hard-earned cash when it comes to professional features and what your experience will be like as a casual. I do not want to bore you with cryptic specs right away, but again, the amount of technology Razer crammed into a mouse that's just 56 grams is pretty insane. Even though, I have to be honest once again, if it will make a difference for a player like myself, that is still highly questionable. This is probably why Razer is focusing heavily on the esports market, with some very big names in the industry actively endorsing their products or simply just using them to compete in tournaments all around the globe. So for these folks, every gram matters, and things like a high-resolution sensor, a super precise scroll wheel, which is optical in the DeathAdder for added longevity and tactility, and an 8000 Hz pulling rate are probably very big selling points. For me, all of this just makes for an easy to set up mouse that feels great in my hands and feels incredibly direct no matter what I was doing with it. I first got into super light mouse with the ROG Harp Ace 2, and I used the Viper V4 Pro for quite a while as my daily driver. Compared to those two, I prefer the more ergonomic shape of the DeathAdder, at least for the right-handed population. But when it comes to my overall gaming or everyday mouse experience, I would totally be fine with all the options here, and the difference when handling them is barely noticeable, and I would say also very subjective. When really digging into it, I felt like the DeathAdder glides above the pretty hard surface of the Hyperflux mousepad I'm using right now the easiest. It almost feels like it's floating, if that makes sense. And the new switches felt the best for me personally, since they are a bit more tactile. That may result in a bit of a louder click, but I really felt like it helped me to keep better track of my clicks. Again, if that makes sense. For me as a laptop guy, the ROG has the tremendous advantage when it comes to ease of use, since it comes with the classic USB-A dongle that you can easily just plug into your laptop, while both Razer offerings connect with a much bigger dongle with a separate cable. It's not a real downside when you're at a stationary setup, but if you're out and about, it definitely adds some clutter. That said, the DeathAdder's new dongle improves quite significantly on what you would get with the Viper, for example, and its more rounded shape is a lot easier to place close to your mousepad without it moving around a lot. And with 3 separate LEDs indicating your connection status, battery levels, and the selected pulling rate in Synapse, it's a noticeable upgrade. On the invisible side, and again, I don't want to get too technical here, Razer also has significantly enhanced the capabilities of the dongle as well, resulting in incredibly low latency and the aforementioned advancements in pulling rate. Unfortunately, it is difficult to validate their claims here, so I would leave that to people who probably review mice for a living or will use these puppies to pay rent. For me, and I think I said this already, the DeathAdder feels incredibly direct, which is of course something you can appreciate even as a casual player when dabbling in competitive games. What does make a difference for me, or well adds to the convenience of using this one though, is battery life, and Razer claims up to 150 hours, depending on your selected pulling rate of course. And while I did not do any dedicated battery tests, this one keeps on going for so long, it is simply not something I would worry about, and with the battery indicator on the dongle I would simply plug it in overnight once that one turns red, which I only did once ever since I got my hands on it about 2 or 3 weeks ago. Of course, we cannot talk about a Razer product without talking about Synapse, and in here you get access to pretty much everything and then some, starting with what each of the LEDs actually indicate, to pretty granular control over your DPI and pulling rate settings, and things like power behavior, all the way to pretty in-depth stuff like calibrating the sensor to the surface of your mousepad or mat, and things like dynamic sensitivity, which changes how fast things move on screen depending on how fast you flick your wrist. And should you have your hands at a slight angle and you are worried that that's what gets you kicked back into the lobby, you can even offset that as well, so no more excuses here I guess. So is all this worth the $160 asking price for the Razer DeathAdder V4 Pro? Well, if you got some money to spend and you're already rocking a pretty solid rig and take your competitive online games or your overall FPS experience seriously, then this one is a great high-end addition, especially if you like the super light mouse experience. If you are a pro though and competing in video games is how you make a living, I would assume you do not really care about the price tag of this one, if the specs and performance work for you, since it's probably one of the most important tools in your arsenal. So yes, while all of the options here would easily work for me, and I could even get used to something less premium and probably also something a bit heavier, the DeathAdder is a ton of fun. And again, it is packed with technology and features that, in my opinion, justifies the price tag. But of course, you would really have to decide for yourself if you want to spend that much on a mouse, but if you do, I'm pretty sure you won't be disappointed. And Razer, if you make dongles this big and with that kind of performance, how about you give us one of these that can handle all of our peripherals at once? That would be quite something. But that should already be it for today. Thanks a ton for watching, folks. Let me know what you think about this one, and please tell me what kind of mouse you are using right now and why that one in particular. Sound off below and feel free to leave a like and sub while you are down there. My name is Alex, you have been awesome, and I can't wait to see you all in the next one. Take care.